Hi, I'm Carl,
And I'm Ebony,
and
and
this
this
is
is
the
The
Loveless
Loveless
Marriage.
Marriage.
All right, we're back with another Loveless Marriage podcast episode, whatever we're calling it. My name is Carl Butler. This is my wife.
Ebony Butler, and this is episode 3.
Episode number 3. We're talking about blended families, as you can see on the screen. Blended families is something nowadays that a lot of people have to deal with in marriage. And dating and marriage is something that you really have to consider. A lot of people have kids. I don't know how to say it. A lot of people have kids.
Something you have to
So,
consider
yeah, it
when
is.
people have kids.
It is.
Sorry.
And so we're going to be talking about tonight how to successfully, what has worked for us as
Right.
far as blending our family. As you all know, as Evan has stated in previous videos, that coming into our relationship, I didn't have any kids. I have zero biological kids. And Ebony from a previous marriage has.
I have.
You act like you don't know how many children I
I'm just teasing. For my previous marriage, I have 4 daughters actually. Their ages are 17, 16, 11, and 6. So they're all girls. So we have quite an assortment and a variety of ages, attitudes, personalities, but I think we do a very, as far as I can tell, I think we do a very good job of blending them all together and working together to have a cohesive family. So
All right.
hopefully tonight we'll be able to, I shouldn't say tonight, whatever, today, we'll be able to share some insight of what works for us, and hopefully you all can take some tips and pointers to blend them into you all's relationships. I think there's some statistics that say over first time marriages, over 50% of those end in divorce. So of course you're going to have, you might have some little people from the first union go into the second union with you. So it's important that their voices be heard. I believe it's important for their voices to be heard as well, because it's just not you living with that person. They have to live with this person and honestly be with them until you all are parted by death. So I think their opinion does matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And so tonight we're going to be talking about blended family, how we successfully blended our family. Like we always say in almost every video, that there's no formula for a happy marriage. There's no formula for making things work. You have to find out what works for you and your family, and whatever works for you. I don't care what the experts say. I don't care what your friends and family say. If it's working for you, keep just keep working it. And so on the screen, you can see down below, we want you to subscribe to our channel. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you may be here for the first time watching our videos. Please subscribe to our channel. It's called The Loveless Marriage. You can see it there on the screen. Become one of our subscribers. Be one of the first to know when we post new videos every Monday. We post videos every Monday morning around 6 a.m. And so as we begin talking about a blended family, me coming into this situation, I think that it's definitely something to consider when you're starting out dating. Let's start there. When you're starting out dating, I never dated anyone with kids. And so that was a new experience for me. I always wanted kids, but for my first marriage, we just never had kids. And so it was a new experience even considering to date someone with kids. And that was a consideration of mine. I did have those thoughts where I don't have kids. So how am I going to fit into this equation? How am I going to come into this situation? And the first thing, let me say that, just because you have kids, that doesn't disqualify you from finding love or from being happy. We have this misconception that because you may be coming into a new relationship with children from a previous relationship, that it disqualifies you from finding love. But I don't think that's the case. When I saw Ebony, one thing I did like about her is that she always looked nice, and her kids always looked just as nice. So it says a lot about a woman who takes care of her children, where they're always looking good. You know, their hair was always done. They always had on really nice dresses, really nice clothes. You know, they were well mannered. And so I think it starts with presenting your family unit as a nice looking unit, because that's one of the first things men look at when they're considering talking to a woman with kids, is how well does she take care of her children.
And I would say, my mom, she had told me, um, when once I transitioned from going to being married, transitioning over to being single, that you don't go out looking good if your kids don't look good. And if you have to sacrifice not getting your hair done, if you have to sacrifice some things along the way, you need to do that, because your children are a representation of you, and to um, you don't want to I don't want to say show negatively, but like you said, she drilled that into my mind, into my head. And I will say this, Carl had said something earlier, talking about disqualifying you. And I'll be honest, when I first was transitioning, going through, because first, we were separated for about a year. um, I I disqualified myself, and I will tell some other young woman or young man, don't speak that out of your mouth. I remember vividly sitting on my bed, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm divorced. I got 4 daughters. Nobody's going to want me. And I said that. I verbally said that, and I cried. And I guess because to me, a woman with 4 kids, people look at it differently. In my eyes, they frown upon it. That was my perception of it. And through talking to friends and talking to my family, they really helped me. And I began to gain strength even within that, becoming secure with that, because that's a large undertaking, especially when you're used to parenting, having a 2-parent household, and now you're reduced down to 1. And you're like, okay, Lord, how am I going to do this? I always would say that, Lord, how am I going to do this? And even during my journey of being single, at times I worked 2 jobs, to support me and my daughters, because, you got to do what you got to do. I was always taught that, when you go out, you look good, and make sure your kids look good. And because that's a reflection on you. And so I would tell any young woman that, or any young man that's taking care of their children, it is a reflection of you. And like you said, it does matter because you paid attention.
Yeah, and I think that, and I've seen it in cases where women say, they blame their kids for them not being able to get a relationship, but a lot of times, they're projecting something onto their kids that their kids have nothing to even do with that. Wow. And it's a lot of times it's how you present your kids. There are I know guys personally who passed on women because they looked at her kids, and their kids' hair wasn't done. If it was a little boy, his hair wasn't cut, wasn't brushed, their clothes weren't ironed. We look at everything because we want to make sure that you can take care of your household before we step into the household. Wow. We want to make sure that you care about your children enough that you're willing to present them well at all times. And so I guess I can ask you, I guess this is going to be me asking you a lot of questions. Okay. Because, I'm coming into the situation. Right. I was coming into the household.
Let me get comfortable.
So what would you say was probably the hardest thing as far as dating with children? Did you always introduce your children to who you were dating? And how did you kind of keep it from your kids if you didn't want them to meet the person that you were dating?
Okay, so I will say this, and this is my number 1 rule for anybody. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm kind of tangled up. My number 1 rule, and I told my children this, I will not bring anyone into our life unless I feel like they have potential to be around. I didn't let men around my children. I just didn't believe in that. I think that is, to me, that's a reflection on me as a woman. And especially, I have 4 daughters. So little girls, little girls are very impressionable. And there were certain standards that I set for my house. And I can't tell my kids, like, I'm supposed to be living a certain way. And then I have different men running in and out of my house, parading them in front of different men. That doesn't look good. To me, it's very disrespectful. You're disrespecting yourself as a woman, and you're disrespecting your children. And I let my children know that, and I told them, and I stayed firm on that. For me, like I said, if I didn't feel like a person was going to be in my life, like a long-lasting relationship, my children would not, interact with the person. And besides you, there was only one other person that my children interacted with. I didn't play that. I did not do that. Because that meant something to me, and my children are my heart. And I love my daughters, and I'm going to get through this podcast without crying, but I love my daughters. And that was a big no-no. And I will say that because Carl said something too I want to reference about sometimes men won't date women with children because of how their children interact. I would say this, you as a woman and a man, because there are a lot of single dads out here too, you need to discipline your children. And your children can honestly be the demise of your relationship. Yeah. And I've told, I had a friend, and I told her kids, I told her children in front of her, I said, don't mess this up for your mother, because your mother deserves to be happy. Children sometimes are selfish because, they're just used to having us all to themselves. But you still are allowed to have a life. You still are allowed to, the parent is still allowed to have a life. The parent is still allowed to date. But I also told those children, don't mess it up. And I think every parent, woman or man, needs to have that talk to their children. Yeah. Sit down and tell them, you know what, I think this person will be good for us. I think this person, will be a blessing, will be an added blessing to our house. Yeah. Don't mess this up. And I think nothing's wrong with saying that. I know some people might be telling me, I might get some negative feedback about that. But no, if your children are unruly, you might need to take a time out from dating. If you can't control your children, if your children are disrespectful, if they're rude, if they're nasty, if they talk crazy, you might need to set a time out for you to even date, because you got to get your kids together. Yeah. Because even as a woman, I wouldn't want to come into a relationship with a man and his children are disrespectful. And especially I have children too. That's going to be the clash of the titans. Yeah. So I would say, get your children in check. And like you said, a lot of people may not like to hear that, but just to reference 2 points to what you just said. Number one, I know someone personally, they got married. He came into the relationship. He didn't have kids, and she had kids. And her son was so unruly, he would try to discipline him, and the mother stood in the way. Wow. And it drove a wedge between them because, number one, moms and dads, they're both single parents on both sides. You have to realize that you see your kids one way. Right. Sometimes we see our kids as they can do no wrong. But someone else coming in and they want to help you discipline your child or help you correct your child, you can't stand in the way of that. As long as they're not being verbally abusive, physically abusive, if they're just trying to correct your child and show them the right way to go, you can't stand in the way of that, because it's going to drive a wedge between you and your spouse. Number one. Number two, if Ebony's kids were disrespectful, I would not have talked to her, because being married, coming into a marriage, and we're both divorced and this is our second marriage, it's stressful already. It's already stressful to come into a new situation. So a man would look at that, and I'm just speaking as a man would look at that as, why would I add that extra stress to myself to know that I'm not going to have say-so in the house, because it's been her and her kids for so long
that I'm just going to be an extra in the house. I'm not going to have say so in the house. I'm not going to be able to discipline her children. And so I'm not going to be able to have input on how the child should be corrected or handled. So why would I go into a situation like that? And a lot of times we lose good people because of our surroundings or what we allow to go on around us. And, before me and Ebony, before we got married, we had a discussion on
Right.
discipline.
I was about to talk about that.
And I told her, I said, I'm not comfortable disciplining your children because as a man, I feel like this. I feel like if me and my ex would have had children, I don't want another man to put his hands on my child. Now, don't get me wrong. I correct them when they're wrong, and I guide them, and I lead them in the right way.
Right.
But as far as putting my hands on them, I leave that to their mother because I wouldn't want another man putting his hands on my child because that would be a problem. That would be a real problem for me. I'm really old-fashioned. I said almost every video, I'm really old-fashioned. That would be a problem for me. So I don't want to disrespect another man or even disrespect Ebony and her children by putting my hands on them. But we had that discussion before we got married.
Definitely.
And a lot of things can be prevented if you have serious, honest discussions before you decide to marry a person.
I totally agree with that. And I was going to bring up that point. We definitely sat down and talked about that. And also what Carl and I did, and I did by myself, I sat down and had a talk with my girls and let them know, because I think I said it in a podcast before, but he probably edited it out, that my children and Carl, they kind of interacted before he and I even interacted. So they had their own friendship. They formulated their own little whatever they had going on. They had it already formulated. But I told them, about Carl, and I would ask my children questions, how do you feel about him? Would you be okay if we dated? I also told them, once we, confirmed and everything we were going forward, I also told them, he's not here to hurt us. He's here to help us. And even up until the day we got married, and even sometime, and even, I would say probably even 3 months after we got married, I still reiterated that because it is new, it is fresh, and my children do have a father and their father is in their life. So that on top of, they already have a dad, then they have another man coming in. That's an overwhelming experience. And I don't think we as parents, sometimes you don't really think about the psychological effect that has on your children. Yeah. And to me, you do yourself a disservice and you do your children a disservice if you don't honestly sit down and talk about these things. You have to talk about, to me, besides, you all coming to the conclusion or resolution if you're going to be together. But if you have children, that should be your second conversation. And it should be a continual conversation. It should be a daily conversation. Because even after Carl came into the house, that's a transition period in itself. And I'll say this especially for my younger daughter, because like I said, I have a 6-year-old, I had to sit back and think, when she turned 1, her and our father, we were together, but transitioning into 2, 3 years old, we were separated. So she really didn't see what it was to have a man present in the household, interacting with me, and I used to joke, and my friends would tell you, I used to call her my little man. She would sleep with me in the bed. She asked me, Mommy, when you come to bed, we would sleep together every night. We would cuddle. That was my baby. And she still is my baby. But I had to even, reaffirm her as, London, you'll be mommy's baby. But, you can't sleep in the bed after, and I would have a countdown, in a few more months, you got to go sleep in your bed. Like I would have those talks. And I think that women, like I said, women and men, after deciding if you're going to be together, the second talk needs to be, how are we going to be able to raise these children in a very functioning household and discipline? Yeah. Because Carl, if I'm not trying to be funny, if Carl would have came at me like, I'm going to spank your kids, I'm going to do this, I'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. And you need to know that as couples, because if not, that person may be great for y'all to be together, but on that subject, you might need to say, we might need to take a step away and reevaluate some things, because for some people that might not work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just people having honest and open conversation.
Right.
This isn't a sitcom. Problems aren't just discussed and solved within 30 minutes.
Right.
You have to have, and you have to be willing to walk away if you don't like the answers that person gives you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you may love them. I know you may be overly infatuated with them. And I know they may have a good job, good career. And this kind of leads me into my next question I wanted to ask you. Would you have dated me, or would you have continued on the relationship with me if your kids didn't like me? Because a lot of times coming into a situation, and I know people that they got married, but the child hated the other person, and eventually they broke them up. Like, they really did things. They kept chipping away at the other person to where they just said, I can't take it anymore. And so do you think that should be a factor, how your kids feel about your potential spouse? Because sometimes kids just don't like the other person. Right. And then sometimes kids are very perceptive.
Right.
They're very perceptive. And definitely. Maybe, especially with the man coming in and you have girls, you have to do everything to protect your girls. That's now, right. A woman coming in and you have a boy or girl, there's less you have to worry about. And you all know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you have a man coming in and you have little women in the house, you have to go through every screening process to make sure that he's a man, that he's not going to do your little girls harm.
Right.
So, and a lot of times things have already happened and they're afraid to tell you. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to tell you, don't marry him or don't be with him. But you're not listening. So would you have continued the relationship if your girls collectively said, we don't like him?
For me, you said something really powerful. I think any woman or man, if you're entering into a relationship, if you feel the need, get a background screening on the person that you are dating. And I know we are laughing,
that's real.
But you may be dating a predator. And we don't, and that's the thing, we don't talk. See, this is the stuff that we don't talk about in relationships. They don't talk about this in marriage counseling.
Yeah.
You have your God-given right to get all the basic information on the person that you are dating, and you have it. It will behoove you to run them through the National Security Data Board for Child Registry to make sure that the person that you're not with has not had any type of stuff. I don't even care if it's back in their high school days.
Yeah.
Because that's a problem. Because if you're going to put your hands on my daughters, that's going to be a problem. Because I'm crazy, like for real. Like I am psycho. I'm crazy about my daughters, and I'm crazy about people that I love and are close to. So yeah, I will really hurt you. To answer your question,
you can. I'm sorry, you keep talking. I'm just gonna put up a picture of the girls.
Okay.
Right.
I would ask my children, why don't they like you? Mm-hmm. And if I need to know why you don't like them. And to be honest with you, I did. Oh, my babies, I love them. They drive me crazy, but I love them. But I would find out why they don't like you. What's the issue? Why don't you like Carl? And, at first, it wasn't just with Carl, but with them, even me talking to them about dating, sometimes they still have a little hurt and resentment in their heart about why you're not with their father or why you're not with your mother. So that's your job as the mother or the father to sit down and talk to your kids. And first of all, let them know that, our divorce was not your fault. And that's one thing I told my children. Your father and I didn't work out because those were grown choices and decisions that he and I made. This has no bearing on you all, because oftentimes children think that they're part of the reason why you got divorced. Yeah. So first of all, let's clear that up. Second point, I told my children that I know as much as you love me and your father and I, we are not getting back together. Because children sometimes hold on to that hope that, my mommy and daddy are going to get back together and this new person is just standing in the way. Yeah. So you have to be very clear in telling your children, your father and I are not getting back together, and you might not be getting back together. Now, if there's hope that you and that other person may be, you reassure them however you think about it, talk about it, discuss it. But I had to let my children know we are not getting back together. And I told them, I'm okay with your dad moving on, and he's okay with me moving on. Yeah. So that conversation had to take place too. Yes, they're still hurt. Yes, they were hurt at that time because they're children. That's what they do. But that's your job again as a parent to reaffirm them and let them know that, I love you. I'm here for you. And thirdly, I told them I'm not going to bring anybody in here that's not going to love you and that's not going to care about you and that's not going to have your best interest in mind. Now, if my children gave me pause about you, I would have definitely investigated. Why don't they like you? Now, if it's just trivial stuff, because kids can be petty, just like adults can be petty. Kids can be petty. Yeah. And I was even thinking about, even after we got married, the one incident where London, the 6-year-old, you got to show the picture.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that.
She cute and all, but that little girl is extremely intelligent and very strategic. At 6 years old, I don't know how she's that intelligent and strategic, but that girl is on it. But you also have to pay attention to make sure your children aren't manipulating situations as well. Yeah. Because children are, like Carl said, children are perceptive. Children know what's going on, and they even have their discernment is on too. And my children, though, told me positive things about Carl, so that gave me ease. That gave me rest to say, okay, well, I'm going to proceed with continuing to talk to them, because I asked them, how do you like him? Is he a good guy? What things don't you like about him? What things do you like about him? So yes, if my kids would have said, Mommy, I don't know, then yeah, I would have possibly, I would have sought to see what are they seeing that maybe I'm missing.
Yeah. And I like what you said, to go back to something you said about how you had a conversation with them to say, me and your father not getting back together. That's the biological parent's responsibility. Right. That is stop assuming that your kids just know. Right. Like, think about how hard it was for you to process that person not being in your life anymore, whether you was married, whether you wasn't married, whatever. Think about how hard it was for you to process that. Mm-hmm. How hard do you think it is for your kids to process that? All they've known their whole life is mama and dad. Right. That's all they've known. They didn't ask to be here. Yep. They didn't ask. They inherited y'all's relationship problems. And so think about how hard that was for them. So it's your responsibility as a mother, as a father, to have those real discussions with listen, kids are smart. You can have real conversations with them, and they may not fully understand, but at least they'll have a reason why things happen. Right. As they get older, they will understand. But and I remember when we first started, before we started dating, I think slapped on the face. I know, with the mic. Like, what did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap. But no, so it was before we started dating. Ebony's middle daughter, she perceived that I liked her mother. Like, we hadn't even started dating, but I guess she would see me looking at her and having a little conversation. And she would always come up to me.
That'd be Miss Michaela.
Miss Michaela. She was Child's a genius. But she would always come up to me and start talking about her father. Just random conversations. She would say, my dad does this and my dad does this. She was letting me know I have a dad. Right. So before you even start talking to my mother, don't think you're going to be my dad, because she was kindly letting me know I have a father. And, and it's funny because now all the girls call me dad. Right. And it didn't start out like that. We're going to talk about how to be patient. Yes. As someone new coming in. Mm-hmm. You're the new person coming in, so you cannot come in demanding, call me dad, call me mom. Absolutely, because they are not going to respond well to you. So you have to know how to ease your way in. You have to know how to become their friend. I know we say that parents cannot be their friend, but guess what? You are not their parent.
Right.
You are the new person coming in, so you have to ease your way in. And now all of the girls call me dad, and Michaela was the last one to start calling me dad because she was so defensive of making sure that she knew I had a dad. But after 8-9 months, she's come around, and for the longest time she didn't call me anything. She would just come up to me, and it's funny,
talking.
and she would just come up to me and start talking. She didn't call me Mr. Carl, she didn't call me Carl, she didn't call me dad. She just came up to me and just started holding conversations. But guess what? I never forced her to call me anything.
Right.
I never forced her. And let me just say this, as a man coming into that situation, or even as a woman, you have to check your pride. You have to check yourself to say, you know, and you may say, no, you're going to call me mom. You're going to call me dad. You can't do that to them because you're coming into a situation that they may already be upset about, that they had nothing to do with. So you can't come in with this ego saying that I'm your dad now. No, you're not. No, you're not. You are their mom's choice. That's good. Like you are their mom's choice. You are their dad's choice. You're not their biological parent. So you have to eat that humble pie. And when they come around, it'll be the greatest reward, because they will appreciate the fact that you didn't come in demanding that you be their parent.
And to me, you as a parent will mess yourself up, and you will mess the relationship up that child will try to form with that other person if you what's the word I want to say, if you try to come in and bulldozer your way or hard charge at your children. Again, Carl is 1000% correct. And I know you can email us at thelovelessmarriage@gmail.com. You can Facebook us on The Loveless Marriage. You can Instagram us, and you can argue us down. But let me help you. There are adults today that I know of, adults today that have told me that because of what my parents did about trying to make me call them dad and mom and father and this and that. No, I don't respect them, because that was their choice. You have to learn to let your children develop relationships, just like you developed a relationship enough with this man or a woman for you to feel like they are good enough to be married to. Excuse me. You need to let your children develop that relationship. I will say this to the day I die. I never told my children to call him dad. Yeah. My only requirements were of them. And even today, I don't even call him dad to them. I will only say it to the ones.
I thought you were about to say to this day, I don't call him dad.
You ain't my daddy. But no, I tell my children, I said, the only thing that I ask you to do is call him Mr. Carl, Brother Carl, or Elder Carl, because that's out of respect. Yeah. And even the Pastor Dion Mama D that did our wedding vow, she was like, he is not a stepfather. You do not step on him. So, I mean, I know people have that notion and stuff in their mind too. And we all know that. And I mean, I know some people call their additional spouses bonus parents. That's great. If that little cute little phrase works for you, have at it. But for us, no. It's Mr. Carl. It was Mr. Carl, Brother Carl, Elder Carl. It's never been by his first name, because that is disrespectful. Now, I can call him Carl. I can say, hey, have you seen Carl? I can ask him that. But no, and my children have never disrespected him. Never. And they know I don't tolerate that. So to me, if you're a parent and you're forcing your child to call them mommy or daddy, no, don't do that. I mean, come on now.
You're already
you're setting yourself up for this person to be hated because of you, because you're not using wisdom. Yeah. You need to be the adult in the situation. You need to understand that you chose this person to spend the rest of their life. Yeah. They still have a parent. And I let Carl know that too, even with us dating. I told him, I'm not looking for you to be their quote unquote father. They have a father. I'm looking for you to be a role model. I'm looking for you to be an example. I'm looking for you to do and to be those things quite frankly, maybe in some cases that they won't see their father because their father's not present and he's not living in the house. So I'm looking for I'm not trying to be funny, to me as him being as a, well, I guess we'll call it the stepfather. To me, he has a more greater role, a more greater precedence because they get to see him every day.
Yeah.
And that carries a lot of weight. And also that has to, and I will say this, that has to do with the woman too. How does she respect the man?
Yeah.
Because if your children see you disrespecting your soon to be spouse or your husband, they're not going to give this dude no respect or woman no respect. If they've ever heard you popping off or talking to them smart or crazy, what you think they going to do?
Yeah.
So you have to, as a woman or man, you have to be wise enough too on how you even interact with Carl. I'm sorry, not with Carl. Y'all don't need to interact with Carl. I interact with Carl. Y'all don't need to. But you need to, as a woman or man, be wise on how you interact with your significant other around your children because they watch that. They watch everything. I mean, my children told me, hey, I saw the way, he touched her hand, or I saw the way he opened the door, or, you said this, mommy, to him, or they watch everything.
Yeah.
With stuff that you don't think they seeing, they see.
And I want to reiterate what you just said. It is up to the biological parents to set the mood for respect in the house, because this new person coming in, how you treat them, how you treat your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, soon to be spouse, is how your kids are going to treat them. They are only going to take as much leverage as you take. They're only going to show as much respect as you show. And so you have to show a high level of respect in order for that to be to trickle down to your kids also showing that same level of respect. The new person can't come in saying you're going to respect me, because they're in a hard position. They're trying to maintain a household. They're trying to maintain a relationship with their spouse,
right, or
soon to be spouse. And now with the added pressure of having kids, it's not their responsibility to come in with that authoritative role. So you have to take that role and show respect. Number one, what I want to say. Number two, coming in, and this is highly important. Number one, you are not in a position to disrespect the biological parent that's not there. And I think if a lot of people will understand that, a lot of relationships would work out with this blended family dynamic. When you disrespect the kid's biological parent, they're going to feel some type of way about you.
Absolutely, and they should.
Because children don't understand what happened. They don't understand what went wrong. They don't understand why it didn't work out between mom and daddy. So to hear you disrespect their parent, they're not going to like you. They are just, you could be 100% correct. You could be 100% correct in what happened. You could be 100% correct in what went wrong. But it is not your job to disrespect their baby's mama, baby father, whatever, however you want to call it, because that is going to drive a wedge between. I wish I could really be transparent and say some things that I really want to say. But no, I'll say this.
We need you to be nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be really nice.
Be real nice,
because I really don't care sometimes. But I'm gonna be really nice. But no, I'm gonna just say this. I've seen it where kids are put into a position where the new spouse is talking bad about their mother or about their father, and they instantly do not like the new spouse because that's their mother. That's their father. Once again, I'll say it. You were their mother, their father's choice. You're not their parent. Right. So you don't have the leverage to disrespect their biological parent. And as a biological parent that's there in the house, you shouldn't allow that disrespect from someone else. I would get mad if my new wife disrespected the mother of my children. That's something I would not stand for as a man, because as a man, at one point you loved her enough.
I was about to say that. Come on now.
At one point,
he talking good.
You loved her enough
He talking
to
real
have
good.
kids with her, to commit your life to her. Just because things didn't work out, you should never allow the new woman, the new man, to disrespect the mother or the father of your children.
Right.
Because you may complain about your baby daddy all day long. You may complain about your baby mama all day long. But you love them enough at one point to lay down and have a child with them. You love them enough at one point to walk down the aisle and say, I do, to that person. And you spent most of your life with that person, even though it did not work out. I think, personally, you are less than a man or less than a woman when you let someone disrespect the mother or father of your kids. Even when you do it in front of your kids. Kids don't understand who cheated. Kids don't understand who didn't pay the bills. Kids don't understand.
It's not for them to understand.
It's not for them to understand.
Right.
And so you as an adult, if you allow that, you are not an adult. You are a child playing adult games. Or you are an adult playing kid games. And so I'm really passionate
about this tonight.
I'm really passionate about this. I'm really passionate about
Free
this.
yourself, Elder. Free yourself.
Because I have personal experience with this.
Right.
And I just think, as a man, never allow anyone to disrespect the mother of your kids. I don't care who they are. When I was married the first time, my mother taught me growing up, and this is going to be a totally separate podcast about mama's boys. My mother taught me that your wife comes first when I was a teenager, because she said, I'm not going to raise a mama's boy. You're not going to run home to me every time something goes wrong. The first time I was married, I know I'm getting a little bit off track, but it's all on track. The first time I was married, I called my mother with a problem going on in my marriage when I first got married. And she told me, don't call me with what's going on in your household, because I'm not your wife. I don't have to live with you. She said that you'll tell me things about your spouse. I'll be mad with them.
True.
But you will move on.
That's true.
And when y'all done kissed and made up, I'll still hold that as a parent.
Right.
And it's the same thing with these kids. We will denigrate the biological parents to the kids. We'll move on, but the kids will always hold that, what you said about my mama, what you said about my daddy. So you have to use a certain amount of wisdom and common sense. You are the new person coming into the house. Even before I married Ebony, me and my mother had a conversation, and I was telling her everything I wanted to come in and change, and she gave me wise advice.
I want to hear all these things you want to come in and change.
We'll talk about that later.
We sure ain't. We're going to talk about it in front of everybody. Talk about it.
And so she gave me wise advice. She says, you're going into their household. You don't go in like a dictator and try to demand change.
Right.
Let them have an adjustment period first.
Right.
Let them adjust to this new lifestyle. Let them adjust to your presence being in the house. Because it's something when a man has not been in the house and now a man is in the house, and vice versa.
So true.
It's different when a woman hasn't been in the house and now there's a woman in the house. You can't come in both guns blazing. This is going to be how it is. You are still technically a visitor until they accept you into your home, into their home.
Because it's going to be a showdown like none other.
It is.
It's going to be Dukes the Hazzard up in your house, and it can get nasty, it can get ugly, and it can get complicated. And I think I totally agree with Carl after he preached that sermon. Please feel free to Cash App us. we will create a Loveless Marriage Cash App page for any offering. We will accept any offerings. But no, that's absolutely right. I mean, like you said, if she was good enough to lay down with, for as my mom would call it, that ride of pleasure, then you need to know. And if he was good enough to be able to say, you know what, that's my baby's daddy, then you need to really think some things through. And sometimes you need to step away from the situation your own self and sit and see it through their eyes. I don't think oftentimes we do that as parents. We just see it from okay, I'm an adult, da 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 da. You know, you have that kind of, like I said, that arrogance, that puffed upness, but you need to see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
And you also need to sit down and talk to your children, like we said before. Ask them how do they feel about the partner and listen to them. Yeah, they may still feel like, well, I want you and mommy and daddy to be together, and you've had that conversation. Yeah, and they still feel some type of way. Let them feel some type of way. They are allowed to feel some type of way.
Yeah.
Just because you have moved on doesn't mean they have moved on. And you need to understand that. And if you can't understand that, then there's something wrong.
Yeah. And just talking about this, it just makes me realize that you have to cater to the kids in the beginning. You really do. When we first got married, and you kind of alluded to it earlier about how the youngest, London, she was 5 when we got married, and she's 6 now. But when we first got married, she was the closest to you.
Right.
And so it was kind of like me coming in. She took it the hardest, and she would lash out in the beginning.
Oh,
she would.
my God.
This one story comes to mind. We was bringing in groceries, and we were being extra with London to make sure that she knew, listen, you still got a place. And so we asked her to put something away, and I went to put something away. And she just bust out, you don't love me anymore. It was just this whole, but see, you have to have the wisdom just to be patient.
Right.
Don't take it personal.
And don't shove that partner down that child's throat either.
Yeah. Don't
do that.
Don't automatically say, you need to check your kids. You need to, no.
Right.
You have to be patient. You are the new person coming in. And even from the biological parent's standpoint, you have to be patient that my kids have to adjust.
Right.
And you need to have that conversation with your spouse. Going into it, we've been through it, so we're telling you before you jump off that cliff that you need to have a conversation with your spouse and say, listen, there's going to be an adjustment period. Don't take it personal.
Right.
Don't be offended. Don't feel disrespected. But they don't know you. You're coming into new territory. You're coming in to our already made situation. And now the whole household has to settle to you being there.
And one thing that we did even before, like when because Carl moved in, of course, to our house because he had a bachelor pad. So, we wasn't going to be chilling up in no 1-bedroom. But even with him moving in, on the move-in day, I told the girls, okay, Mr. Carl is coming over. He's bringing his stuff over. And even for me, that was an adjustment because I had to rearrange certain things in my room, in my life. I may, and this is something that we'll talk about. It might be silly, but we'll talk about in other podcasts. The way that I clean may not be the way that he cleans. So we even had like a cleanup day around the house, and we all sat down together. And he went through his expectations of, this is how we're going to divide it up. Since I'm the new guy, I'll do this. I'll clean this area. I mean, we sat down and we went through things. We were very thorough because, yes, we had little London. She had a little moment. She had a lot of moments. And I'll be honest, for me, that was frustrating because I didn't think it was going to be a problem. Yeah. And there were some nights that I would cry because I'm like, okay, God, why is my child acting like this? But then I had to realize that's all she knows is she and I. And he is somewhat of an intruder. He has taken her bodily place in the bed, now, she has to now look at this person. Before she wasn't knocking on doors before she entered in rooms. She was in the room,
It was one time. It reminded me to come back to establishing relationships, your own relationship with the kids.
Oh, definitely.
But
yeah, definitely.
it was this one time where the door was closed and we were trying to get London into the habit of knocking, and again, you have to be patient. So one day the door was closed and she knocked Next thing I know, she literally kicked the door in. Like the door came swinging. I jumped up like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like, have you lost your? Have you lost your? But no, but she was so used to this being
her space,
and it's funny because now it's our room, but she still sees that as this is my mama room, and so you have to have just an enormous amount of patience and understanding when you're dealing with kids. You can't come in guns blazing. This is my space now. Even with my office, they're used to coming into this room. It used to be an empty room, but now it's got my desk and pictures on the wall and my laptop. I have to understand that they're not just gonna not come into my office. You have to, and we're 9 months in.
We'll be 8 months on the 20th.
20th.
Yeah.
And so you have to have that understanding and give them leeway. Don't for the first of the year, we had our family meeting. Mm-hmm. We wrote down our dreams and our goals for the year.
Right.
And I told them, I said, we've had an adjustment period. Now I'm going to begin to increase what I expect of you all, because I couldn't come in with all these expectations. But now that you all are comfortable with me, now that you all know me, now that you all know I have your best interest in mind, if I ask the girls to clean something, they clean it. If I ask the girls to do something, they do it, because I earned that respect. I earned that.
Right.
That bond with them. And so you just have to be wise. And what I was going to bring up was that also, and I'll ask you this, how important is it, I know the answer, but how important is it for the new person coming in to establish their own relationships with the kids outside of the biological parent being there?
I think that if you want to have a relationship, you better establish one. And I know I'm kind of like joking about it, but the one thing that I do respect about Carl's and the girls' relationship, they have their own relationship with him. I never told them, well, go over and talk to him, go over. And I never said, okay, for him, to be honest, I think on my part with Carl, I'm talking like he ain't sitting here. For you, I thought on my end, actually, it was more talking to you, for you to learn them and to take time with them. I didn't have to tell you, but I told you, it is 100% wise to the person that's entering the relationship to take time to learn each of the kids separate. Mm-hmm. Because of course there's 4 of them, but they each have their own styles. They each have their own personalities. They each have their way of talking, expressing, communicating, likes and dislikes. It would behoove you to learn them so you know how to respond to them, so you can know how to meet their needs. Yes, I want him to learn how to meet my needs, but he needs to learn how to meet my children's needs too, because we're going to be together. We got to live in this house together. We have to be cohesive together. I wanted him, and then I had to tell him, because of course he's never been a dad before. So as a woman, no offense, don't think that they're going to know, or don't think that as a man, she's going to always know what to do. Yes, women have that built-in nurturing side, and we want to be that, but you need to tell her, hey, you might want to take them out on separate dates. I know some people are like, duh, that's common sense. No. Some people only care about the woman or the man, and they don't think about the children. No, I had to tell them, hey, you might want to take them out separately. You might want to interact with them. Yes, you can come over to see me and say hi, but there may be a time that you need to say, Ebony, go upstairs. Let me talk to the girls. Let me watch a movie with them. Let me, go pick them up at school. Let me go do something, blend them into your life. So when they do get here, it's not just like, this dude done just showed up on our porch and now we got to accept him like he's some stray dog or something. Yeah. You need to blend your significant other into their lives as well and give them their own space. So sometimes when Carl interacts with the girls, I'm not around. I'll go upstairs in my room because I don't want to be around. I want them to have their fun little times, and then they will come to me and tell me their stories. Oh, well, we did this today, or he brought us this, or I like hearing those stories, and I think that for a man that's never had to do this, it's a learning process for you too. Yeah. I should ask you, how do you feel? Because oftentimes we, like I said, yes, we're focused on the children, but how do you feel about learning them? How did you feel about that process?
I thought it was a fun process. I thought it was a fun process. And we forgot to mention that only 3 of the girls live with us.
Yes.
The oldest lives with her father.
She's definitely a daddy's girl.
Yeah, and so I already knew, not to backtrack, but I already knew coming in with her because she was already 16 when we got married. I already knew that we probably wasn't going to be that close because she's old enough to be like, she's daddy's girl.
Definitely. So, but I will say that she still respects Carl. They don't have any beef or any issues.
Yeah.
That they're cool. She calls him Mr. Carl, and and they have their little conversations, and we keep it moving. Yeah. But I did forget, we did say the 3, the 16, the 11, and the 6-year-old are very present, helps around these parts in this house. They are definitely here, and it's on and popping.
Yeah, and so we're not close, but I respect that because she's already almost grown, and all she knows is her dad.
Right.
So you have to respect things like that. You have to respect women. It's a difference between coming into a situation and you're dealing with 1-year-old, 5-year-old, then you're dealing with 16, 17-year-old. They're already grown. I mean, let's just be honest. They're already grown. They already have chosen a parent that they want to cling to. Right. So you just have to be respectful in that situation. But no, getting to know the 3 that are here has been really fun. Right? It really has, because I learned. They taught me that there's no formula. And I say that, but there's no formula to raising kids. One I can just be ratchet with. One I can just have like the most intelligent conversations with. One just want me to pick her up and throw her around and just whatever. You learning their different personalities. It even amazed me. Because once again, I didn't have kids, so they may go away for a weekend or a week may go by, and I look at them and their face change or they get taller. And that is the most amazing thing to me, because I can see the change in them. A lot of times the parent may not be able because they're used to seeing them every day.
Right.
But me coming in, I was like, when did your face change? Like, when did...
I'm like, look, dude, I'm over it. He's all like, oh, I'm like, get over it.
but I think it's the most amazing thing, because I always wanted kids. And we talked about, if you haven't watched our Facebook Q&A that we posted on YouTube just yesterday, please go back and watch that. It's a very informative video. I talked about on there how... What was I talking about?
I don't know your thoughts.
What was I just saying?
It's very informative Q&A, and...
I don't know, but I seriously lost my train of thought.
You were just talking about their interaction with the girls, and you were talking about Q&A. I don't know what you was talking about.
But no, it's just amazing to see them change, and just to, because I've never been in that position before to have kids and just notice that. But no, I've always wanted kids. That's why I'm talking about the Q&A. Yeah. And I was saying how God answered my prayer about the woman I married. I wanted her to have girls, because I didn't want to come into a situation where you're in competition, and me coming in with a little boy in the house, there would have been competition. And we need to talk about that tonight.
Sure would have. That'd have been mama's baby.
Yeah, but just dealing with that. But no, it was important for me to establish relationships with the girls, because I honestly wanted to get to know them. I honestly wanted to have those relationships. I honestly wanted them not just to see me as a role model, but eventually to see me as dad. And so it was very important to me to establish that, because I couldn't just love them when you were around. You
Right.
know, and a lot of times
And pay
people,
attention to that
and a
too.
lot of times people would do that while you're dating. They only love your kids while you're around, but then when you're not there, they don't want nothing to do with your kids because they're just so
So
focused on
true.
winning you that kids are just the byproduct. And so, but no, that was very important to me. That was highly important to me. But talking about that, we just brought that up. How do you deal with the competition? And that's hard for a lot of men to come into a situation, and a lot of women, because
Oh yeah.
when a woman
Two
comes in,
thoroughbreds.
and a man already has little girls and he's a single parent, you're on her territory.
Sure
Now,
are.
if a woman comes in and a man has a little boy, he's welcoming to that. A woman in the house. But when there's already a little girl there, or vice versa, when a woman has a boy there, and a man comes in, he's like, "Buddy, I'm already king of this house. I'm already." So, how do you think you deal with? And I know we didn't really have to deal with it, but how would you advise to deal with that competition?
I will say this. Before you and I dated, I did date someone that had a little girl, and I could sense the tension in that little girl's eyes when she saw me, because there it is, as my mom would call it, the clash of the thoroughbreds. It is something about a little girl and her father and a woman, another woman that's not her mama, that it is an electric energy. So just like you said, I had to use wisdom in how I interacted with him.
Yeah.
I did, we did introduce our children to each other, because like I told you guys in the previous podcast, I thought we were serious enough that we felt we were moving in that direction, and we wanted our children to meet so we could see, because that would have been a definite blended family. How would all of these women work together? But a little girl and her father, that bond is a beautiful thing. Like, I'm a daddy's girl and I have another sister, but I would like to say that I'm probably more of a daddy's girl than she is, but that's up for debate. But I would tell anybody to just be respectful and use wisdom. Don't become jealous, because it is easy to become jealous. I mean, you a grown person, no offense, you a grown person and you jealous of a 6-year-old.
It happens.
It happens. And when it does happen, you might need to take a step back and be like, okay, why am I jealous of the 6-year-old? But it's the truth. It happens, and people, I'm laughing about it right now, but that's what people don't talk about. But you kind of just need to establish, your boundaries, establish your place in their life, and let them know, hey, I'm not trying to take you from your daddy, because children have that in their mind. Like, this person is here to take you from my mommy or my daddy. No, I'm just here to add to your life and to help you and to see you grow. I want to see you grow. I want to see you develop. I want to see what can become of this relationship. So I would say just be very, very cautious and very wise.
Yeah.
Watch the words you say. Watch, even, it might sound crazy, even how you touch your significant other in front of them, because I when I was dating the other person, I might have put my hand on their shoulder. Honey, she would come and stand right next to her daddy and look at me like, lady, back off. So you might not even think nothing of it, because you just interacting with the person that you're with. But when I say children watch everything, they listen to everything, and you best believe they're going to go back to the other person and give a report on what done happened.
Yeah.
And I would just say that just use wisdom within yourself, and even let the person that you're dating know, which is so crazy. Give them reassurance, like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to give you your time when they go home or whatever. But even with that, I mean, even it sounds so stupid, but even I would say, even when you're considering dating a person with kids, going out to dinner, like, I was worried about that for you. Like, he's never had to pay for all of us.
Yeah.
That's a big undertaking when you're just used to paying for 2 people, maybe $35, wherever you go, 50, 60 at the most. But when you're paying for a party of 5, And my kids like to eat, not just because they greedy, they just like to eat,
That's something that you definitely have to consider.
You got to think about.
If you are thinking about marrying someone with kids and you don't have kids, and you're used to dating and you go out and you pay for 2 people, when it's multiplied by 5, not multiplied by 5, when you add on 3 or 4 more, or even if it's 1 more, like even if one person can add $15-$20 to the bill.
Right.
So these are things to consider. Don't go into the situation thinking it's just you and your spouse. No, it's not.
It sure ain't.
It's you, your spouse, and the kids.
And them kids.
You have to, if let me just say it plain. If you cannot afford a family, maybe that's not the best situation for you.
Right.
Get that love thing out of your head. Get that everything's going to be Shangri-La, la-di-da.
Shangri-La.
Whatever it is,
Shangri-La.
get that out of your head, because finances plays a huge role in blended families. When I married Ebony, I counted up the cost.
Come on now.
I made
the cost, bro.
I made the money to take care of a family. And so I was able to make that choice. But everyone has to be able to make that choice and be comfortable with it. You have to be comfortable with your choices. Stop making choices based off of infatuation. Oh, I just love this person. You got to sit down. You guys have to sit down and say, listen. And Ebony did that. She said, listen, this is what it costs when me and my girls go out to dinner. And before I forget, let me just say, even to you, Ebony, I don't know how y'all single mothers do it. I don't care if you got 1 or 4.
Thank you.
I don't know how y'all do it, because now I come in, I pay the majority of the bills, and I said, you was doing this by yourself, like you were doing this, maintaining a household, not an apartment, a house, maintaining a house, car note, raising kids. I don't know how you single mothers do it.
Thank you.
I congratulate you. Everything bad I've ever said about single mothers before I dated one, I apologize.
You was talking crazy. Wait a minute.
Not bad.
I'm just saying, cray about us.
Like, it ain't that bad. Y'all be like, but no, it's.
We're gonna have some discussions.
Oh, go on it, man. I respect you all. You all have gained my respect. But no, it's. You need to have real conversations, and I think that's a lot of what you don't see. People say about our podcast is that we're real,
right?
Because people don't say this stuff. People just say, "Oh, everything's gonna be great." You know, you're gonna be a bonus mom. You're gonna be a bonus dad. You're gonna be you're going to the house. You know, oh, the kids, they need a dad. They need a mom. No. They need someone that is prepared to take on this undertaking, because they need someone that's prepared for a family. And you parents have to consider that. You have to consider if you are seriously interested in someone that doesn't have kids, you need to have real conversations with them. You need to have, I know don't take offense by what I'm about to say, but I know you're glad to have someone in your life that's willing to come in and date you and you have kids. But don't let that overshadow the fact of you finding out whether or not they are serious about handling a family, because they have to be ready to undertake that. It is not easy.
I will say this too. You made me think of that about something. Even while we were dating, one of my children had gotten sick, and this all goes back to preparation, and like I talked to in previous podcasts about preparation and looking at the person's level of consistency, and is this person really going to be around? So when my child got sick, it's okay. Carl has been there, because I've gotten sick while we were dating, and he had to go with me to the hospital because I was dead sick. He had to go with me. Now it's good to go with me because I'm his girl, and that's all wonderful. That's what quote unquote he's supposed to do. But for him to come with me and sit with me and my child the entire night until the morning and to drop us off, that's something that you need to pay attention. If that man, now I understand men have to go to work because Carl has Carl's an independent contractor and he does real estate. His schedule is a little bit more flexible. But if he would have not have offered to come and sit with me, or offered just to say, you know what, Ebony, you go ahead and drive you and your daughter, I'll come and follow behind you. You know, I might have to leave early. That would have gave me some pause if he would not even have asked or said anything. But for him to say, you know, I'm going to stay with you all until she's discharged, that showed me a level of commitment, you know.
And that's something else also. You have to understand when you're coming in to a household where kids are there, you can no longer plan out your day.
That was a crazy day.
You can go to work, have these plans. When I get home, I'm do X, Y, Z.
Right.
You're used to being single. You're used to being for it just being you.
Right.
But you never know. Kid get sick at school. They didn't go to the hospital. And I remember that night because me being me, I'm like, okay, they could have performed the procedure at one hospital, but that hospital didn't specialize in dealing with kids. And so Ebony said, we stay in Jonesboro, which is south of the airport here in Atlanta, Georgia, if you're not from here. We had to drive all the way north, about 30 minutes. Right. The hospital 15 minutes away couldn't handle, or they could have, but they couldn't put her to sleep. Right. Because they didn't have the person there to do that. And so Ebony, being a parent, said, I don't want my child to be awake to see this procedure. Me, I'm like, just have them do it. But you have to understand that a parent's love will drive 45 minutes in the middle of the night, and you got to take that trip. Like, you have to.
And you better not complain about the trip either.
No, we're going to complain.
To yourself, privately. Don't say it. Don't say it. Look, don't talk crazy. Let me give you a word of advice. Don't talk crazy while you're in the emergency room with your significant other, because it is and I will say this, and it's no offense to Carl, when you don't have children, you don't understand. Until you become a parent and you have to watch your child go through suffering, crying, it's bad enough that you're already tired because you've woken up with this child. You've got them ready for school, sent them to school. You drive, sit in traffic, Lord knows wherever people work at in Atlanta, because traffic is horrific here. You drive, sit through traffic, come home, cook them dinner, get ready to go to Bible class. Then some freak accident happens and then you end up having to go to the hospital. Yeah. So that was our night. Like, it wasn't just a nice typical night. And then you got one child that's already at Bible study.
And so it wasn't just a come on, let's go. It was It was a call was placed. Carl, I need to go pick Maya up because she's over here, and then take her home, and then meet us at the hospital. Okay, this hospital can't do it. Right. We're gonna come back to the house. We're gonna get one car. Then we're gonna drive north. Then we're gonna come back home. We didn't get home until maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Right. Then we gotta go to work the next. I mean, it's you have to be willing, and I think that's what we've been saying this whole podcast. Right. You have to be willing, number one, to be patient. You have to be willing, number two, to adjust. Your time is no longer your own.
You better
when you marry someone with kids.
Right.
You have no time.
Your time is their time.
Your time is their time. You have to be there.
Right.
If one parent gets stuck at work, you have to be willing to step in, cook dinner. You have to be helped with homework. Listen, consider all of this stuff.
Right.
You are now the parent in the house. You can't say you need to call your boss. No, you are the parent in the house. Right. So you have to be there to help with homework, take them to cheerleader practice, go to games. You have to go to the hospital. You have to make sure that they're in church, make sure that they wake up for school on time, make sure that their clothes are clean, make sure that they're fed. You have to give up of yourself to now dedicate your time and your focus not only to your new spouse, but also to the kids, because it's not easy. So if you're watching this and you have kids, as we get ready to wrap up, you need to have a real conversation with the person you're dating. Stop being so infatuated with them. You have to make sure that they understand, and also give them responsibilities while you're dating. If you are really serious about this person and you've already introduced them to your kids, give them responsibilities and see if they can handle those responsibilities. You have to be willing to be patient. Be patient with them as they learn to adjust. It's patience on both sides. You have to understand that a person coming into this without kids, they're going to need an adjustment period.
Definitely.
They are going to need give them grace, like give them an adjustment period, because just because they don't pick up on it right away, you can't say, "Oh, you're not for me." No, if they're trying to adjust, trying to understand, trying to learn, you have to give them that time to learn. And so I think the three important things that we've said tonight: number one, you have to have patience.
Right.
Number two, you have to use wisdom. Number three, you have to give up of yourself. You cannot be selfish anymore when you're coming into a situation where now you're taking on a family. And don't just look at it as everything is going to be great. You know, I finally have a family. No. And on the flip side of that, women and men, don't just marry someone that now your kids have a father or mother, because that is one of the worst mistakes you can make, because they don't need a father and mother. They need someone that's going to be responsible for them. They need a good role model. They need someone who is going to be kind to them. They need someone that, let's just speak bluntly, you need someone that you ain't got to worry about in the middle of the night them going into your child's room doing something to your kids.
That's right.
Not talking crazy to your kids, not putting their hands on your kids in a abusive manner. You need someone that you can be at peace with, and that you know that your children
Lord.
will be safe around. Forget
Lord.
that love stuff. Forget, oh, my child loves them. No, you need to know as the parent that your kids are safe with the person you're marrying when you are nowhere around, because they are really all that matters at that point.
Right.
So you have to use wisdom. You have to use wisdom, and you have to let go of yourself and just say, I have to now think for my kids.
Right. I mean, I hope none of this gets edited, because it needs to be said. And this probably will be one of the longer podcasts, because your children are your inheritance.
Yeah.
They're your legacy. They're going to remember, these moments, and it's up to you. Again, like we've stressed, you have to use wisdom, and you cannot just have love stuck on your mind. Yes, this could be a really nice person, but this may not be the person that you need to be in a relationship with. They may not can handle it. And if they can't handle it, it's okay. It's not anything wrong with you, and it's not anything wrong with them. They just can't handle it. Yeah. Some people are not built for children, and that's okay. Like Carl said, it's okay. And you have to be okay with losing that person. You have to be okay with, okay, you know what? I enjoy their company. You guys might end up being great friends. Yeah. And maybe that's what that friend, maybe that's what that relationship needed to be, just great friends. But at the end of the day, you're just like, you depend on your spouse. Your children depend on you to make wise choices and decisions for them as well. Yeah. And that's one thing that I stress even in my kids' lives, even every morning before they go to school, we talk. I tell them, I need you to make wise choices and decisions today. And when you say I do, you're making a wise choice and decision for the rest of your life. And that even includes the life of your children too. That is something that you really need to consider, something that you really need to think about. If I can stress any more important podcast that we will do, you really need to consider the life of your children.
Yeah.
Because I've seen on television, we've seen countless stories where women and men have molested children. You've seen crazy things that go on, and it could have been prevented if you just looked at the signs, if you just paid attention, if you just woke up in the middle of the night. I know everybody that may watch this podcast may not be married, and you may just be, your boyfriend may be living with you, or your girlfriend may be living with you. Pay attention.
Yeah.
No offense, go read them diaries. And another thing, I'll say this: watch your little girls with sitting on men's laps. Watch women, how they touch your son. I know we try to, I know it's probably took it a different term, but pay attention to certain things. It is too, technology is too far advanced.
Yeah.
Time is too precious. You know, God has entrusted you with that life. Pay attention. You know, if go through their phones, read their text messages, what they're saying. Sometimes they're texting their friends, telling them their friends, you know, I don't like my mom's boyfriend because, you know, he touched me inappropriately. And instead of you popping off talking about you trying to steal my man because I've seen stuff like that. No, that's a time for you to get yourself in check and kindly escort that man out that child's life. Mm-hmm. You guys, women and men, please pay attention to the signs. Prepare yourself. Prepare that person, of course, for entering into your life. Prepare your children. You know, it's a huge undertaking, but it can be a wonderful experience. It can be a great experience. I think probably the next podcast that we would have to do, kind of the counteract. I don't want to say to counteract this one, but how to deal now with being a step parent, how to deal with being a step parent, because that's something, again, that's not in the the marriage of love book or the language of love. Yeah. That's not in that. So maybe that will be the next podcast, you know, how to deal with being a step parent. And maybe we'll have a guest, a couple that has, you know, that's had to have dealt with that. I'm trying to talk right today. Come on and give us some insight on maybe how it worked in their world.
Yeah. And so we appreciate everyone for tuning in. This is probably one of our longer podcasts. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, but I think it's one of the most important. It may be the most important. Definitely. Because I think that we can all agree that our kids are probably the most important thing in our life. Right. You know, besides our spouse or, you know, significant other. But we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Once again, we want you to subscribe to our YouTube page. Please share this video. Please tag someone in this video.
Definitely.
In the comments, please leave your questions and comments. We always do. We're going to do a Facebook Live question and answer. We're definitely going to do one after this video. The video posts on Monday morning at 6 a.m. So we'll probably go live on Facebook on Monday evening at 8 p.m. to answer all questions. So if you have any questions in the comments, please leave them in the comment section. Please tag someone who's thinking about marrying someone with kids. Please tag someone that's without kids that's thinking about marrying someone with kids. I think this is a very real conversation that we all need to have. Let's stop with all the cotton candy conversations about marriage, and let's talk about some real stuff.
Some real meat and potatoes. Yeah. And also follow us on our social media pages. We are the Loveless Marriage on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We have not did a Twitter page yet. I don't know if we're going to tweet, but actually we might start tweeting, because February we want to send out some little daily little messages, some little cute things I've come up with in my little mind. But please follow us on all social media handles. And again, and if you have questions or you want to get in contact with us, please email us at thelovelessmarriage@gmail.com, and we will respond to you immediately. Again, thelovelessmarriage@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And again, thank you again for tuning in.
All right. We appreciate you all for tuning in. And until next Monday with another Loveless Marriage podcast, we hope that you all have a great week and be good.
Bye, y'all.
All right.